Oh, see you later. Oh, all right. We're ready.
And we're on. Thank you so much. I know I make you work. I make you install Skype, asking you guys to get closer. But what the hell, man? It's been such a long time, and I'm so proud for the new records. We're gonna talk about it. But for people that don't recognize your face or voice, who the hell are you guys?
We're Cigar.
We are Cigar. My name's Rami.
I'm John. Hey, there it is.
Hell yeah. Guys, the last time I spoke with John for an interview was at Music for Cancer, the first edition, actually, of the Music for Cancer. You guys been involved a lot with the festival over the years. You're going to came back to Quebec in 2023 for the Red Bridge. And there's a new records. But maybe for people that may be unaware of the story of Cigar, how that crazy RD started up. Yeah.
You started the band.
Yeah. I had a band called Circus Tents, just like fast screaming skate punk stuff that was from high school. It was my first band, and we just kept going until we got a little bit better, and all of a sudden we were getting better shows, and it was like early '90s. And then we got put on the Lagwagon No Effects. It was the Duh tour, and No Effects was headlining with Longest Line, and El Jefe was new. And that day I watched Derek, OG Lagwagon drummer, playing with the single pedal, and I was like, oh my God. I went home and sold my double pedal that day, that next day. But then I was like, God damn it, this is what I want to do. It was like a trajectory I was on as we were getting tighter, my older band, Circus Tents. And so we ended up parting ways, and I went up to Eugene, Oregon from Northern California to start this band. I didn't know who was going to be in it or what the name would be or anything. And then I got some dudes together. First, the bass player, Jason Torbert, that we did the first record with. I found him through a mutual love for the Police. Yeah, I love the Police. I'd already been playing all that fast shit, and I was like, man, I need to learn. I want to find some different pockets, and I thought the Police would be a cool thing to get into, you know. And then we got a band going, and Jason was so good. I was like, oh shit, I should show him some of these other ideas I have that are real fast to end up being Cigar songs later. I mean, Rami writes a majority, like even more than a majority of all the riffs now. But I had a couple songs I was dragging around, and one of them ended up being Captain on the first record of just like riffs. I didn't have any singing or words. So I showed Jason, and he did some amazing shit to it. I was like, whoa, because he's such a weirdo, you know, like a kind of a Rush weirdo. And then I found Rami at a movie theater. I was an usher, and I was like desperate to find a singer. I just kept like trying to find people, and then I tore his ticket one day, and he had a good written shirt. So I was like, "You want to sing for a band?" And he's like, "I don't sing," which was a lie, obviously. And then he literally came over that night that I met him at the theater. He's like, "Do you mind if I watch the movie first?" I'm like, "Yeah, watch the movie. And then here's my number. Come over." So he came over, and he brought Long Run from Speed is Relative, basically done. And then we played that together, and then we were off and running.
That's how it all started.
That's how it started.
It's crazy because at that point, punk rock was not that much about virtuosity like now, like more technical punk. So you arrived with something that took people really by surprise, but it took a long time. And I spoke about it when I present you at Music for Cancer. The album was just getting exposure slowly and slowly. And it's crazy because everybody have their story, how they heard about you guys or the first time they listened to the record. There's something special about it. Did you felt making it that you were doing something that was maybe not in the direction of a lot of band? There was a lot, playing really fast and more technical, but it was not the thing like maybe now.
It was a kind of an exciting new frontier when we opened for No Effects and Lagwagon. I don't think I knew who Lagwagon was, but I had Ribbed. I had the No Effects Ribbed album and stuff before it. You know, I already S&M Airlines and all that, and so I knew that it was being played on a level that was like exciting. It was like a new frontier, you know. But I was already a huge RKL fan. That was like I was very passionate when I discovered RKL. I was already on a mission. And so we were trying to implement tricky, really fast stuff in the old punk band Circus Tents. And you know, and that band was very screamed. It wasn't melodic. And so I was already a huge RKO fan. Like when I saw Derek play, they sound check with Noble End Lagwagon that day that we opened for him back whenever Doc came out, like 92 or something. And I ran up to him right after sound check. And I'm like, dude, you must be an RKL fan. He's like, fuck yeah, these are Bomber's drums. And he had Bomber's kit. And he was telling me that he used to like sit right by his side. I think he used to tech for him or something. But so they were badass. I instantly loved Lagwagon. I mean, that shit's all in our DNA. That was like what started us off, you know. But RKL was kind of like the foundation. And then all the 80s stuff we grew up on. Yeah, 70s and 80s.
Well,
Yeah,
plus
like
there's
I was crossover with metal and punk rock at that time.
yeah, I was gonna say that I think we also have always listened to a lot of other music besides punk. And I know from my experience, I listened to a lot of jazz when I was in college and Frank Zappa and just stuff that's not necessarily straightforward and just something a little more interesting. And like John mentioned, Rush, just kind of the progressive side of things as far as like instrumentally challenging or interesting. So it's not just super straightforward. We also love simple, straightforward songs, but in terms of being like involved in the songwriting process, just making it fun for us as well. And oh, what if we add this here and just make it a little bit more interesting? It was kind of natural and intuitive process for us.
And I think the most interesting musicians and the best are the one that are the most open mind about music. When I interview them, they're like, man, like you said, like I listen to punk rock, but there's, you know, I love jazz, I love blues. And when you're open to every, you know, every kind of style and music, you bring everything to a band and make it unique. And I think that's the thing, you know, because yeah, there's jazz and blues in the way you play, and it's punk rock is just faster, you know, but it's all there. The way you play drum, it's different also because you have a different approach. And it's cool because like you name, like I'm a Canadian. When it's Rush, I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jason was bringing a lot of the Rush influence to us. You
Yeah,
know?
definitely.
Even his bass tone and everything. The new guy Jonathan Hischke, he did all the bass on The Visitor, and a lot of it he just did like on the fly, like with us standing over him. We had just tracked the drums and guitar, and we didn't have bass written, and he also plays with his fingers, and he has a lot of respect for Torbert that played in Cigar before, but Jonathan had never played fast punk rock stuff. He used to play in he's played in Hella, you know, the math rock band, like the crazy math duo with Zach Hill, you know, from Death Grips and all that. He played
Yeah.
in that group, and he's played in a bunch of strange math rock, avant-garde, weirdo shit. And he's a wizard, you know.
Yeah.
But he brings an interesting style to us too because he's just a different animal, you know. He's a lot different than Jason. Both incredible dudes that have a lot of respect for each other, but it kind of changed it's like a different flavor now with him, you know.
So the first record was released. Like I said, it took a lot of times to gain like the attentions of punk rockers around the world, but it actually did. And when you kind of came back, that was the crazy thing. I'm sure you realize, like, man, we have way more fans than back in the days before we quit. And was it something that put pressure for next records? Or you were comfortable and you know where you were going, so you know you take it more, maybe less, you know, without pressure?
That's a good question. I think in terms of coming back for reunion, I would credit Jay Epinep from Music for Cancer for bringing us back together. We'd stopped playing in around 2006, And there was no plan. There was no like we're breaking up. There's no. It was more like let's just take a break. And then 1 year became 2 years, became five, and so on. And Jay asked us to reunite and play the festival, and things lined up because we all have separate lives and busy adults, and then things came together and said this is a good cause, and it would be fun to go do this. And then when we did it, I think it did reignite something. It re-sparked something, but not in terms of a new album yet. It was more about just the passion and enjoyment of playing together. And then once we played together, because I think then we did Rock Fest after that, and then we started saying, well, maybe we should play a little bit more. And once we started, instead of just like a couple reunion shows, we said maybe we should try to play more. After that, then it was time to go, okay, then we need to start writing some new music. But because we do live apart, we live very far from each other, then the process of writing, because when we wrote Speed is Relative, we were practicing 4 days a week, 5 days a week, in just regularly, consistently, all the time. And so the process of writing something new was very different. And so we had to figure out how are we going to do this? And so there's an element of using technology to be able to record something and share the idea. But the way that we actually write songs is I think the magic of what we do is when we're in the same room, working quickly and sharing ideas and trying and doing, what about this? What about, and sometimes you do something accidentally and then you say, okay, let's do this on purpose. And so once we figured out, okay, we want to write some more music, then it was a matter of, okay, then we should start getting together more. And it just took a long time to be able to do that, but we would do it here and there and start constructing, here's one song, here's another, and then gradually we just build up a library of songs. And then when we knew we were going to try and do The Visitor, initially it was going to be an EP because we had enough songs for an EP, and we thought, okay, let's release something. But then we just kept going and thought, if we're going to re-release something, let's do a full album instead of just an EP. So then I was flying down here from Oregon, flew down to California to work with John, and I would fly down once a month for 3 days or 5 days or something. So just kept doing that, and we would write for a long time and work things out in this exact room, and gradually built up this library of songs, which became The Visitor. And I think we had ideas. We still have ideas that we wrote many years ago, but we also wanted to write a lot of fresh, new ideas. And I think that helped us kind of reignite something as far as the newness. Instead of just playing songs that we wrote maybe 10 years ago, let's just write something entirely brand new. And I think that
that helped a lot.
Leading a long-winded way of saying we gradually knew we wanted to write new songs, but then we hit another level where we said, let's write entirely new stuff. And that it became exciting because they were totally new ideas, and that became songs on The Visitor. I think the song Knocked Down, that one was written a long time ago. So
20 years ago. Or
yeah, so we have songs that were older.
Gone Wrong was really old.
Yeah, so there's I think 2.
We refreshed them. We added new shit, like different.
Yeah, there's basically 2 old songs and the rest are all just new. So it was fun for us and challenging because we thought, okay, let's write entirely new songs, and instead of just coming up with or taking old songs and making them newer, like just starting from nothing, making the new songs became like a fun, interesting challenge for us.
I think I should interject too, like you were asking if we were concerned about what the fans would think, like about what we have to deliver on the next album. I think you were asking us that, but I feel like I'm grateful that people care what we're doing, but we've never really cared what people think. We just keep doing the thing that we do because like we're fired up, and we only play it if we're really feeling it, even if it's conceptually a cool idea of a song. If we're not like sinking our teeth into it, or it's not making us go fuck yeah, then we just go put it in the back burner. We want to feel like fuck yeah at every single turn of every single song, and if we don't, we just don't put it out, So we knew that we were super stoked on what we're doing. So like, well, this is just, it feels like it's cut from the same cloth as Speed is Relative. So if you liked us before, there's no reason why you shouldn't like this. It's like, it's still us, So anyway. Thanks for liking it if you do. If you don't, just fuck off.
You're right. I mean, when you do a record, it's not selfish to say it's for you guys. I mean, like you said, you mentioned it. It's tough for you guys to get in the same room together because you live in different countries and it's crazy. Like you are like you were one of the few like back in the days that was a challenge. So like when the pandemic arrived, we cannot be together was a thing. Like, it's been for years, but you stick to it. And what you create, like you said, it's something that is like the second part of speed is relative, and a lot of people were maybe afraid of, like, can they do that again? Man, you fucking nail it. And
Bro,
in a way, I start to prefer more the new records than speed is relative. Of course, I listened to a lot the first record, so maybe it's because it's new, but man, there's so many stuff in that record, so many riff and so many things that you miss, and through times you figure it out, and it's just like it's perfect. There's a lot of stuff and people love it. The reaction is amazing. And actually there's a crazy story behind the label, because first it was supposed to be released on People of Punk Rock Records, but then Fat Mike interfered, and you guys are now in the Fat Wreck family, which is crazy. I'm sure you wouldn't dream of becoming one of the one of the member of the family.
well, that was the goal 28 years ago. I wouldn't have dreamed that it would take 28 years. I thought I was gonna just like shoot up to Eugene, get a fucking band going, and get on Fat. And he just never noticed. I think we gave him a record in like 2003 or something, and he was like, "Oh yeah," kind of like as if he'd been meaning to check it out or something. And didn't he say it was all right or something?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I I was in a bar in San Francisco and I saw Fat Mike, and I told him I was in the band Cigar, and he said, "Oh yeah, I think I've heard the album." And I said, "Oh, what do you think?" And he said, "Oh, it's okay." And so,
One thing I love about that dude is he doesn't mince words. He just tells you how he feels. He's not like a yes man. He just goes, eh. But
Yeah.
I think in terms of the release plan, initially we were actually going to self-release. And so when we had the idea to do the EP, we just said let's just release it ourselves, because I think we were trying to talk to some record labels and no one really seemed interested. And so we thought, well, instead of trying to struggle to find a label, let's just release it ourselves. Then once we started thinking about doing a full album, we also recognized how much work it would take to self-release and press CDs and ship things out and get the vinyl and get distribution. And like, it's a lot of work to run a record label. If you want to just release something for fun, no problem. But we wanted to make sure people heard the album and get it out there. And we were honest with ourselves about, I don't think we would be able to deliver the album properly if we self-released. So then we started talking to some other record labels. And I think one of the things that we really liked and still like about People of Punk Rock Records is Anthony is very genuine. He booked shows for us in Quebec back in 2001, 2003. And when I learned that, I thought, this guy is like, he's in it for the right reasons. He's been a passionate supporter, a fan of the music of all punk rock, and so we connected with that authenticity. And I think that that's why we initially had chosen People of Punk Rock Records. And then just through the course of time, I ended up hanging out with Fat Mike, and then just talked a little bit, showed him the album, and then he liked the new album. And so that's how the
He did listen to it.
yeah,
yeah, he listened to the new album, and he liked what we were doing. So then I had to have the hard conversation with Anthony about saying, hey, I think Fat Mike wants to put it out. But Anthony was so cool about it, because he said, this is what I want for bands that sign to People of Punk Rock. I want to help them. I want to give them exposure, and I want to help them move up and move forward. And so I think that was a really great thing to hear, as far as the support and being able to say, yeah, go do it. Enjoy the success of being recognized by Fat Records. And like you said, it was genuinely a dream come true for me, for John, and I think that it was something that I agree that I didn't think it would happen, especially once we were writing the new album and no one was really interested. Then it was kind of like, oh, all right, because you know, obviously releasing the first album back in the '90s, late '90s, and then this many years later, like we don't, you know, we're a little bit out of touch, or a lot out of touch with the scene. We don't follow things as closely, so we're like, we don't know if people still like what we do or anything. So then it was very nice to be able to have that kind of recognition from someone that we highly respect.
It's cool. It's a beautiful story, and I mean, like, I spoke with Anthony about that, and I'm not bullshitting you. I was disappointed because it was so crazy that that record's gonna be released in a Quebec label. But at the end, it's all about you guys. It's the best for Cigar, and that's what he told me. Like, it's the best for them, and I respect that. And it's the same for me. Like, if I were in your position, I will actually say yeah. And with kid, family, I will double say yeah. Because after all, it's a great deal because, like I said, first of all, it's a family, and it's true. I spoke with every band on Fat Record, did many interviews with them. It's sincere, it's true, and they want the band to be together, so they tour together, they hang together, and Fat Mike knows, you know, he's been like the godfather of the scene for so many years. NoFX is one of the most important punk rock band of my generation, and you know what he did and everything. And since you know NoFX getting you know their good sleep in maybe 2 years, a year and a half, it's a good spot for all the band of Fat Wreck to you know get that boost, and it's gonna happen. That's where we are, and the scene is amazing. And to have you back with new stuff, it's crazy.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And you remember, like when I wrote you, Rami, I wrote, "Do you remember me? It's been a while, you know, because I know we see each other, but maybe writing, he doesn't, you know, figure out that it's me from the radio show." And I present you at Music for Cancer, and man, thank you for getting me wrong.
Yeah, I remember that. I was just telling John the story about that earlier. It's pretty
So
funny.
what's the story for people? What did I say?
Well, I don't know if I understood correctly, but I remember you said something about us being a one-hit wonder, but then you explained what you meant by that. And so that's why I just wanted to make sure John knew that we were cool.
Because the thing I present them, like how I heard about you guys was a friend of ours. His brothers was really young. He got to a pawn shop, and there was the CD. They sell the CD Speeders Relative for $1, and Joe said like it's punk rock, and he said, "Oh, I think like my sister friends listen to a lot of that." So he bought the CD. And back in the days, $1 for a kid at 10 years old, it's crazy. But he did. And he passed them to his sister, and she came and gave us the CD. And we were laughing, like seeing the artwork, but like, oh my God, $1. What? You know, we were sure it was like the worst thing we're gonna heard. And it really, like when it started up, everybody were looking like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And then we listened to it 4 times in a row. And we were like, man, we just discovered the best punk band, man, of our generation. And nobody's going to know about that. And yeah, I call you like the one-hit wonder records of punk rock because it's one of the best. And then, man, you released the second. So, man, I'm wrong. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, that was well explained. Thank you.
So there's going to be a huge tour behind that. So I was going to be the rest of the years for Cigar and the beginning of 2023.
Well, we do have some tours planned. We're going to South America for the first time to be part of the We Are One tour, and then we have Redbridge planned out. And then I think we're talking right now with our booking agent, Steve, who from Belvedere. He's been incredibly helpful. Yeah, he's been amazing and really helping us get some amazing opportunities to tour. And so I think we're talking about if we can go back to Europe and do a good run there, and then see about some other international destinations. We might try and do a little bit of touring in the United States, but we haven't spent a lot of time in the United States touring just because the response to punk rock, at least for us, has been really kind of tepid. It's not really a strong response. And so I think that we've just thought the philosophy is let's go to where people like really love the music, appreciate the music, instead of trying to convince people that don't care to like the music. We say let's just go to where people do like the music. So that's kind of how we've been approaching it for the last few years.
I mean, we'll do all the above anyway, but right now it's fun to go where it's appreciated, and it's like our people are waiting there for us, you know.
And to that point, I think because there's a new album that came out not that long ago, allowing the album to get out a little bit more for more people to hear it, and because it's also on Fat, I think we're definitely going to have a wider audience reach. And I think that that could help us as far as if we do decide to tour in the United States. But we're still figuring it all out because there is a newness to being on Fat Records for us, and different people contacting our booking agent just because they now know who we are, where before I think they didn't know who we are. But being able to be on Fat to get that exposure, I think that's hopefully going to allow us to tour more in places we haven't toured either as much or haven't toured at all. So we're still getting that all figured out, but we're having those conversations now.
It's so cool. And yeah, like last year was really weird because like, more in place next year's. And like you said, I think punk rock, when it explodes somewhere, is just after that there's a lot of years that there's nothing because of the explosion. And that's what happened maybe in the States, and some maybe not every states, but you're right. Like, yeah, and it's so cool that you mention it, because I spoke with that. I think that the band have to figure it out, that because a lot of band are like, I'm discouraged, like we go to the state, there's not much people, and then yeah, but I think like the punk rock is still fucking alive, but the road is pretty different. Like if you go to Peru, they're crazy. If you go like to Canada, they're crazy. So maybe just change the road for a couple of years, but the wave is always coming back. And with the pandemic, the nostalgic punk rock is kind of the soundtrack where you want to go off. And kids are coming. They had start band during the pandemic, and I see more and more kids at shows. So man, the hope is there.
Nice. I like your approach. I feel like
He's an optimist.
Yeah, we should call you for some coaching every once in a while.
Man, it's free, man. So anytime, guys. I own you that, because I fucking call you on it one time. Shame on me. Thank you for the friendship, and thank you for the new songs. I mean it. A lot of people were waiting for that record. Everybody is excited. So there's a lot of months till the Red Bridge. So people's gonna be more and more and more cranked about the show. It's gonna be cool.
Nice. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I think we've always loved coming to Quebec. We've always been treated well. The audience has been very energetic, exciting.
Awesome.
I remember the first time we played in Quebec City, that we were on stage before the show. They had a big curtain at this venue, and when the curtain opened up and there's a big audience and people singing along in the front row, I think maybe some people didn't even speak English, but they were singing the lyrics, and it was just such a cool feeling to travel from the other side of the United States to Quebec and see the response. So we've always loved coming to Quebec. And then the first Red Bridge, like, it was so amazing. It was like a beautiful venue, and they treated us so great. So we're really looking forward to coming back.
J'aime la poutine.
I think it was 2004, if I'm right, the first time you came. It was at Lanty.
I think we did 2001 and then 2003.
Okay, yeah, 2003 I was there. Yeah, I was there.
It's like LX, Lex.
Exactly. And a funny thing, it's Lanty actually. And it changed the place. Lanty is still alive. They got a reborn a lot of years ago, almost 10 years ago. But the sign, it's still there on the same place, because they cannot take it off. It's the city saying, no, you pay for that, and the cost is just crazy. and there's no obligation of taking off, so it's still there.
Oh, that's funny. I played their acoustic in 2017.
The skate park.
Uh, yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. Because there's a skate park and there's the venue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, good memories. And yeah, you never forget about us. That's the crazy thing. And before you came from Oregon, and a lot of people are curious about the scene. How's the scene right now? The music scene generally, and how was the music scene back in the days when you started up, and maybe the punk scene also?
Well, I think back in the day where we came from, the style that we played was not that popular. That's why we ended up moving to San Diego, and not to say that that was the best choice or the right choice, but it was just a decision that we made because we felt like in Eugene we were getting overlooked. We weren't getting very good shows, and people seemed somewhat lackluster as far as the style that we were playing. And I think there's just a different sound at the time. And then same thing with Portland. I think it's just a different vibe and energy. Now, when we play, we haven't played that much, but when we play in Portland, the response is much better now. And I think it's just a different generation, different appreciation. But I think it's we've sort of always just done our own thing in isolation, regardless of the scene. And so the part of it is like, at least from my experience, I'm not really tied into the scene too much. Not to say that I don't like it. I just sort of just do my own thing. And so I feel like I'm not I'm not really a good representative to answer that question.
Yeah, same. I feel like I was really in the scene up till I was like 22 or something, and that was over 25 years ago. I know. Was it? Holy shit, yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Because like, I'm so involved in that scene, and it's cool to see people that don't have the same eyes, and don't look at it the same way. You see it at the different angle because you're not always in it, and it's cool because you bring something maybe fresh.
Yeah, I feel like our influences when it comes to punk rock are still from our teenage years, like growing up on the SNFU and, all that old punk rock stuff.
And you mentioned it, John, how music came to your life. How are you, Rami? Is there any parents influence you playing music? How music came to your life and playing?
Yeah, that's a funny question because
How we got into music?
my parents don't. My dad owned one CD. He owned a Whitney Houston CD, and he never even opened it, took it out of the package. My mom had a bunch of records, vinyl. I still own them, and she listened to a lot of like Jan and Dean, Ricky Nelson, just a lot of old kind of 60s and 70s music, Dick Dale. And then we had soundtrack to like the Grease, the movie, and just a bunch of random vinyl. And then for me, I got into music initially. It was like fifth grade where I kind of discovered that I could go and choose my own music.
Falco, Rock Me Amadeus.
Yeah, for me, it was Michael Jackson, Thriller.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And then I discovered Def Leppard. And then once I discovered Def Leppard, I got into more metal stuff. And so I liked Rat was my favorite band.
Did you like Slip of the Lip? That was like the next record.
I still like Rat. And
Me too.
then I got introduced to a little heavier stuff like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. And then once I started heading down that route and then discovering
Metallica is a big
yeah,
moment.
yeah, started getting like discovering Metallica and
Whoa.
yeah, there you go.
Shit, dude. That's rad.
And then I discovered skateboarding, and I was listening to heavy metal and skateboarding, and then I met a friend of mine, John Wax, who we went to the same school together, but we weren't really friends at the time. But we were skateboarding at the same place, and we just hung out. And he said, "Yeah, come over to my house." Went over to his house, and he showed me Suicidal Tendencies, the first record, The Faction, Dead Kennedys, Circle Jerks, Black Flag. He showed me all this stuff, and I was like totally blown away. But the first thing I thought, I was like, my parents wouldn't want me to listen to this, and so I hid all my punk rock music.
That's basically what makes it punk rock, you know.
And so I got into listening to that, and then we had a local radio show at the university, and they at Thursday nights at 10 p.m. they would have a punk show for 1 hour, and so I would stay up late and I would record it on cassette, and I would just have these cassettes of the punk show. And then I remember one night my parents would go to bed and I would listen to it. One night my mom came out to get some water and she heard all the cussing and all that like crazy. And she came into the living room. She said, "What are you listening to?" And I turned the music off. I said, Go back to bed. Go back to bed.
You don't want to see this, Mom.
And she said, I want the phone number for the radio station. I said, no.
Oh my God.
I said, no. You're not calling the radio station. Go back to bed. It's okay. So I had to hide it for a long time. And then finally they just realized that it's like, that's what I was going to listen to. And then I got into playing guitar, just kind of dabbling, because I had a couple friends that had some guitars. And so I just had a guitar, but I wasn't really serious about it. And then later on, I decided that I wanted to play more serious, but I switched to bass. And so then I started taking lessons and buying tablature books and really trying to learn how to play the bass. And I got into that for a long time. And then eventually, I think at the time I was listening to stuff like Mike Watt and Firehose, and because like really bass stuff. Yeah, a lot of bass stuff. So old.
That was the era of the bass, though, because we're it's really going to date us now, but we're both like 1991 high school graduates. You too, right?
Well, I was in 1990.
Holy shit. But we're the same age.
Yeah, so I was playing a lot of bass stuff, but I started writing more chords. I was playing a lot of chords on the bass and just moving like melody lines. And something hit me where I thought, I think I should be playing guitar, because I'm starting to play the bass like a guitar. And then I ended up buying a guitar from a good friend he was a big influence as far as I own his punk rock vinyl record collection now. He unfortunately passed away, so I feel like I'm carrying the like people like that who like really had a strong influence, where I got the guitar from him, and that's the guitar I learned how to play fast punk on, and I have his record collection. So I have a lot of appreciation for those kinds of people, and John Wax, who he changed my life by showing me punk rock. So I still have a lot of appreciation for people that really put me in they genuinely changed my life and sent me on a different direction. So I think those are the kinds of people and experiences that got me into music. Like my parents had little to do with it in terms of getting me into music, but my parents are very supportive and allowed me to make noise and, play shitty guitar for years until I learned how to play better.
Wow. And the spirit keep on living. It's beautiful.
It takes that kind of like influence. Like he's got that dude, John Wax, that influenced him to go down these different roads with good, influential punk rock. But for me, it was Matt Wedgley. We call him Wedge. But he ended up being the screamer in my punk band, Circus Tents. And then later, he had a band called The Force that was just like gnarly. It's one of my favorite. I mean, I would call it hardcore, but hardcore has kind of changed into it means a lot of different things these days. But it's like real fast screamed punk rock. But yeah, and he made me listen to punk rock. He was like, "Oh man, I know you love Guns N' Roses, Appetite, but you got to listen to this." And it was Suicidal, the first record, And Suicidal's first record, the self-titled one where they're all hanging upside down and it has Subliminal and Possessed and all that shit. That was major for us. Like we even used to play that first one, was it Sick of You or Sick of People? No one's really
Yeah.
Anyway, we were really, then I started like, I remember when I first got into punk rock, I didn't quite get the real fast thing, like when he was forcing it on me and hitting me with all this stuff, and I'd hear the Misfits. I'm like, oh, I get that, and I like the Angry Samoans and like all this shit I could really grab onto, and I liked the leads in Suicidal's first record. But then all of a sudden it clicked with Minor Threat, and I was just like, oh, like I understood all of a sudden the momentum, especially when I finally went to my first punk show, which was Youth of Today. and Bold. They played in Nevada City, California. It was like late 80s, and I was like 15 or 16. And I kept hearing about a pit, and I couldn't imagine what a pit was. There was no internet or anything, and I was such an MTV kid. I didn't even get what I kind of had like my hair grown out, a backwards hat, you know. And Youth of Today is quite an introduction to a punk show, and they brought that New York hardcore energy all the way out here to Northern California, and it was a huge circle pit, and people just diving all. I was like, people are landing on me. I was just like, holy shit! And I got shoved out in the pit. And then I came back from that. I'm like, fuck yes. Like I figured out who I was now. I didn't know where to go in high school because all the jocks wanted me. I'm like 6'7", you know, and everyone wanted me to play football or basketball. I didn't want anything to do with any of that shit. And once I found punk rock, I was like, oh, now I know where I belong, you know? And it still felt so underground back then. It felt kind of dangerous, and like to represent it meant you're gonna get called a lot of names and fucked with a lot. But
Oh, that definitely happened.
yeah, it felt really dangerous, and going to shows was scary. And that was like, and then what did it for me was I went and saw Blast, the NorCal Santa Cruz. You know, Dave Grohl got involved with them in recent years and remastered some stuff because he was wanted the world to know how badass they are. But we saw some of their, I saw them quite a bit. But the first time I saw them was my second punk show ever, and it blew my mind. And I bought drums that weekend in a garage in Sacramento. My mom and grandma scraped together like $300 and got me an old Tama kit with some Pisces cymbals. My neighbor gave me a double bass pedal. He was like an old metal dude that was like a born again Christian. And then I was just in there, just like trying to get that fast beat. I couldn't figure out what to do with my feet, you know. But yeah, it was pretty exciting times.
Yeah, it's cool. I did an interview with the singer of Scream, the first band Dave Grohl was in, and it was the most closest I got to Dave Grohl, and it's crazy. He came from the punk scene, and you know, the singer has so many great stories. And actually, he was out of prison, and he get up, Scream back on his feet for a tour without, of course, Dave Grohl. And Dave Grohl called him the day he was out of prison and sent in a driver. And he said, "Man, I'm looking for a guitar technician." And he got the gig, and you know, since then is his guitar techs. And I was like, wow.
Brad.
That's cool.
And that was a crazy time. You're right. When you a lot of people have read the NoFX book, and they talk about the years of suicidal tendencies, where there was really gang rival in LA, and the scene kind of get more violent, and that's why Black Flag kind of leave, you know, because it was too crazy at some point. It was just fight, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I went to shows where they had to stop the shows because there's people in the pit with straight razors and people get stabbed, and yeah, it was a different era for sure.
There were a lot of back then too. There was a lot of the white power skinhead problem at shows in the early 90s. It just sucked. So we got chased in Sacramento by a truck full of skinheads swinging crowbars, and it was gnarly. Sacramento was pretty gnarly, but that was kind of my scene. That's where we played all our shows at the Cattle Club. That's where I saw NoFX and Lagwagon, and saw everybody there. Mike Watt, Fire Hose, and Dead Milkman and SNFU. Like we had so many great punk shows there. It was a great scene. It was just kind of it was just a lot of fire and ice with all the different social types and like people with weird agendas, and it was sketchy. I just remember we were always a little bit nervous going to show because you're like, fuck, I hope it doesn't get too gnarly, you know?
Yeah.
But you know what's cool? When NoFX played, there were a bunch of skinheads showed up, and they played Kill All the White Men, and they had the whole crowd just chanting "Oi, oi," you know, and then "Kill All the White Men" chorus kicks in, and the Nazi guys were trying to salute, and the crowd just got so like big and uproarious, you know, everyone was just like yelling at them and screaming "Kill the White." I mean, it was pretty funny, dude. And El Jefe's up there, and it just felt like they left. They just there was just too much of great positive energy, and no, we're not going to take your shit kind of vibe. And I just remember thinking, fuck, dude, NoFX is so fucking cool that they handled that like tension that way, and they're smiling the whole time, and they're a huge influence on us. NoFX is kind of like sort of the pinnacle of this whole scene. So it's really cool for us to link up with Mike finally and those dudes, you know.
It's so cool. I love them. And I did an interview with Fat Mike for the first time in 2008 and did 5 after that. And I remember in 2008, I was really nervous. And he said, you know, Quebec City is like where it's the place where you want a kid to grow up. It's the place I'm sure Caillou must live. And I said, who the fuck is Caillou? And he said, like the TV show for kids. I said, I don't listen to that TV show. I don't know who the fuck is Caillou. Who's Caillou? And he freaked out like, you don't know Caillou? Like that guy don't know. I'm sure he's from Canada. I want to meet Caillou. And when he did the show this September, he posted on Instagram pictures of the St. Catharines, and he said Montreal was good, and he posted pictures of Caillou and said Quebec was awesome. And I'm the only one who got the joke. Like, you fucking shitty man. I was on Instagram. What? Oh my god!
That's cool.
That is cool.
But they're cool, and we're gonna miss them, and it's gonna be crazy for the next 2 years. But that's good for the band on Fat Mike, if on Fat Track, because there's gonna be a lot of exposure. Every media talking about those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. Actually, I'm gonna hear the interview the day of my birthday in 2 weeks. So you guys are part of the gift in a way that life gave me for the radio show.
Great.
Well, happy birthday in advance.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you, 41. My birthday 40s was screwed up by I don't know, something happened in the whole world, but
that
this
thing.
Yeah. Well, so I guess we'll see you at Redbridge.
Of course. I'm gonna be there in person, and I can't wait to hear the new songs. And people have to grab it physically. There's still time before Christmas. Go buy that Crazy Records. And actually, before we leave, it's a book. So the name Cigar, it's not what you think. It's not from the cigar, and it's not a crazy concept to have a cigar publicity, like saying, oh, we're gonna have the band Cigar to sell cigar. No, it's actually a fucking book.
Well, we're actually named after the champion racehorse from the 90s, so it has nothing to do with tobacco or anything like that. It's
Right.
We're named after a racehorse, and that's on the first album cover. It's implied that with the guy in the horse carriage, but there's a horse out of the shot, and like we have some artwork. There's little horse references.
You can see it on the front there. We put the horse-drawn buggy on the spine of the book.
Yeah, so
there's a bunch of
at the top left
secret references in there. But yeah, we designed that book because we felt like.
And then on the other side at the top too, there's another horse carriage.
Right.
No, it's on the front cover, but there's a lot of little. We put up some secret stuff on the side there, so we did that kind of stuff for like. It says 99 cents because the album came out in 1999.
The first one, yeah.
So we put little kind of Easter eggs on the album cover.
And the hidden track that we had a name for it. That it was a set of numbers that's on there, and so we designed that book because it's for us. It's like a story, like a journey, you know. So we felt like it would be cool to just come back with it's like a sci-fi pocket novel.
That would be cool. Like you really have to make it happen, like that novel.
we were actually we were talking about putting a little booklet that was shaped like a book in the release with the people of Punk Rock Records, but it didn't happen just because it was kind of a lot of work to actually put a little book in there. So
maybe later.
Yeah, maybe later we might do that.
I hope so. Guys, thank you so much for your time, generosity, I repeat myself, and the friendship over the years. We're going to wait for you in Quebec. We're going to do a huge special with the new records and old stuff. And guys, congratulations. I'm sure you're proud. But this is what I call a fucking masterpiece.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Merci beaucoup.
And have fun on the road. And hell yeah, man. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thanks, man. Au revoir.
Au revoir.